Okay, so Module 2 is all about inequalities. So we're going to review those. You've all seen them before. We have less than or greater than for inequalities. The hungry alligator always eats the bigger quantity. So I have 2 is less than 5. Here I would say 5 is greater than 2. I always look the larger part of the inequality symbol faces the larger number. We are going to start on the graph, and we're going to do something called interval notation, which you might have done before. We're going to be using brackets instead of the open and closed circle that you guys may have done before on a graph. So square brackets are going to mean including, so that's going to be these brackets on your computer next to the P. And that's going to be for either the less than or equal to or the greater than or equal to sign. And then parentheses are going to be either for less than or for greater than. So when we graph an inequality, we always want the variable, so the x or a or y or whatever letter we're using, we want that on the left. And then we're going to shade towards whichever way that inequality is pointing. So if it's less than or equal to, we're going to shade to the left. Greater than or equal to, we shade to the right, because that's which way it is pointing. If you have the equal sign, there's a square bracket, so that's the or equal to. Everything else is a parentheses. And I think we have some examples here. Yeah. Okay, so here you have -2 is greater than x. So first thing, you want the variable on the left. So you need to take this whole inequality and flip it. Okay, which means you're going to flip everything about it. So it's going to be x. The inequality is going to flip. So x is less than -2. It's still saying the same thing. The small end of the inequality is pointing towards the x on both of these. The large end of the inequality is pointing towards the -2 on both of these. Okay, then you're going to find your part on the graph. So let's say here's 0, -1, -2, -3. So you find -2, mark -2. Now you're going to be using a parentheses instead of an open circle. So typically you might have used an open circle. Now you're going to use a parentheses. The way the parentheses is which way it's pointing. So this is pointing to the left, so you're going to do the left-sided parentheses. And then you're going to shade to the left. Okay, so only if the x is on the left side, then your arrowhead will mimic the inequality. So you have to move the x value or whatever variable to the left, then you can shade in that direction. Okay, interval notation is going to look like this. So you're going to answer your questions on a graph and then in interval notation. So, sorry, cannot see this here. Okay, so here's what we're going to do for interval notation. You're going to either do a bracket or a parentheses, then your smaller number or your leftmost number will go first, then a comma, then your larger number or your number on the right will go second, and then either a parentheses or a bracket. Infinity will always get a parentheses. Okay, so these parentheses here, or these less than or greater than, get a parentheses. The or equal to, they get a bracket. So let's look at some of these examples here. I'm going to draw some number lines. Okay, so here you have x is greater than 4. The x is on the left side. You're going to find 4, so we're going to say it's right here. and it's pointing to the right. So you're going to have a parentheses because it's just greater than. There's no or equal to. Parentheses pointing to the right, and then you're going to shade to the right. Now, for your interval notation, what you're going to do is you're going to start with the left number on the left, which is 4. That's your smallest number. So it's going to be 4. Because that 4 is just a greater than, it gets a parentheses. So parentheses 4, comma, what is this arrow going towards? Infinity. It keeps going and going and going, so it's going to go towards infinity. So then the infinity will also get a parentheses. So this is your answer in interval notation. Parentheses 4, comma, infinity. Okay, then the next one you have x is less than or equal to 7. So here's 7. Because of the or equal to, it will get a bracket. The bracket will point to the left because that's which way our inequality is pointing. So now in interval notation, my smaller number, oops, okay, so my smaller number here, this is pointing towards a negative infinity. Sometimes it's super sensitive when I draw things. There we go. Okay. Just kidding. It's not wanting to draw this symbol. There. Okay, so negative infinity. So for interval notation, my smallest number, my leftmost number is a negative infinity, so I will go parentheses, negative infinity. There we go. Comma, 7. And then the 7 will get a bracket. So you can have a bracket and a parentheses in the same interval notation. They don't have to be the same. Okay, it's just whatever the symbol is will go next to the number. Okay, then here you have 4 is less than or equal to x, which is less than 7. So what that is saying is that is x is between 4 and 7. So here is 4, here's 7. Where it's in between 4, it could also be 4 because of the or equal to. So this will get a bracket at the 4. And then it's less than 7. So it's not going to be 7, but it could be 6.999. And then we shade in between. X is in between those two numbers. So then the interval notation will be just like this. So you have a bracket, then you have 4, comma, 7, parentheses. So x is 4, 5, or 6, but it's less than 7. So now when you're solving inequalities from now on, you're going to answer your number in interval notation rather than like this. If you type this in, it's going to be marked wrong on your homework and your quizzes. Okay, so when we're solving inequalities, we are solving them the same as we would for an equation. We distribute, combine, do our inverses. Except if we multiply or divide by a negative number from one side to the other, we flip the inequality. That's your rule for inequalities. And then you answer in interval notation with a graph. So let's solve. Okay, so for example 2, I have 3x minus 5 is greater than 6. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to keep the x on the left. So I'm going to take this minus 5, add it to both sides. They're going to cancel out here. I'm going to have 3x is greater than 6 plus 5. That's going to give me 11. Keep the x over on the left, so I'm going to divide by 3. Those are going to cancel. I'm going to get x is greater than 11 over 3. I'm going to leave it as an improper fraction. Here's my number line. 11 over 3 is roughly, what is that, 3 Almost 4. 3 2/3. So here's 3. Here's 4. It doesn't really have to be precise, but you are going to want to, you're going to type it in when you do it in MyMathLab, so then it'll type it on the graph for you, but it's roughly right here. All right, are we getting a parentheses or a bracket here for the 11/30? Parentheses, and that's going to be facing which direction? The right, good. Okay, so parentheses to the right, shade to the right. There's our graph. Not the best drawing. And then we have parentheses. Our lower number is 11/3, comma, we're going towards positive infinity, which will also get a parentheses. Okay, so again, you can't type it in like this anymore. With the x is greater than 11/3, you type it in like this, in interval notation, yes. So in MyMathLab, when you go to click in to type, there should be like math symbols that come up on the bottom, and you'll have an infinity symbol there. That's a good question. Okay, let's look at example 3. So on the left side, I do have to distribute. So I'm going to multiply 3 times x, 3x. 3 times 2 is going to give me plus 6. Then we have greater than or equal to 10x plus 2. All right, I want to keep my x's on the left for when I graph. So I'm going to take the 10x and I'm going to move it over to the left. So subtract 10x from both sides. That's going to be 3x minus 10x is going to give me a negative 7x. Bring down the plus 6. These canceled. I'm left with a positive 2 over here. Okay, then I'm going to take this plus 6. I'm going to subtract it from both sides. That's going to leave me with negative 7x is greater than or equal to negative 4. And then I'm going to divide both sides by negative 7. Now here, I'm dividing by a negative, which means I'm going to take this inequality and I'm going to flip it. So I didn't do that over here because when I divided by positive 3. So I'm dividing by a negative here, so I'm going to flip that. I'm going to get x is less than or equal to negative 4 over negative 7, that double negative. Negative divided by negative becomes a positive. So it's 4 over 7. Okay, so now let's do a number line. And we'll have 4 over 7, that's in between 0 and 1. So let's just mark 4 sevens to make it easy. Is that going to get a parentheses or a bracket? That will get a bracket. And we're going to the left for the bracket. We are less than. So there's our graph. And then our interval notation, you have the lowest number as negative infinity. So parentheses, negative infinity, comma, 4 sevenths with a bracket. Yes. It is going to the left because it's less than or equal to. All right, now we got one with fractions. So we're going to do this problem with a fraction just like we would a normal equation. You just have those rules with multiplying or dividing by negative. So, common denominator, 8. Okay, so I'm going to multiply each fraction, or each term, sorry, by 8. So that includes this negative 7 over here. So when I do that, remember you're clearing the denominators and multiplying by 8 to clear it because this is an equation. It's an inequality, it's an equation. We're still solving for something. So 2 goes into 8 4 times. So this is going to come down as 4 parentheses negative x plus 2. These 8s are going to cancel, but there's a negative right here. So I need you guys to do this. Minus parentheses 1 minus 7x. Because I'm subtracting this whole thing, not just that first term. That's why we got to do parentheses, because of the fraction. Okay, and then this is less than negative 7 times 8, negative 56. All right, so now we want to distribute. So we're going to go 4 times negative x, negative 4x, 4 times 2, positive 8. This was minus the entire numerator here, so I need to distribute this negative sign, or you can pretend it is a negative 1, because it really technically is. Negative 1 times negative 1 is a negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 7 is a positive 7x. And that is less than negative 56. Now we will combine like terms. On the left, so I have a negative 4 plus 7 for x's. That's going to give me a positive 3x. And 8 minus 1 is going to give me a positive 7. All right, so I'll subtract 7. So that should be, let's see, 3x is less than negative 56 minus 7. Is that negative 63? I believe you. My mouse isn't working. There it is. Okay, so negative 63. And then we will divide both sides by 3. And that is going to give us x is less than, we're dividing by positive, so I did not need to change the inequality there. So x is less than negative 21. So we get our answer, and we're going to make our graph. And here's negative 21, parentheses or bracket? Parentheses, left or right? Left, good. So there's our graph. Okay, then our interval notation, our first number, we're going to look all the way to the left, so it's a negative infinity with a parentheses. Always have a parentheses next to infinity. And then negative 21 with a parentheses. All right, and if any of that is confusing to you, and you think you might need some help or some tutoring, we have the Academic Support Center here. Great segue there to talk to you guys. Should probably pause my video. Okay, last two examples here. We're doing compound inequalities. So this is two inequalities. So we have the two symbols here in one equation. So the goal here for these is to isolate the x value in the middle of the inequality. So there we go. There we are. Okay. So here, if I pretend I didn't have this, I would just take this 7 and I would add it on both sides here. But since I have the other side, I'm just going to also do it here. So instead of there being 2 sides, there's technically 3 sides to this equation that you're working with. So you have negative 11 plus 7 would give us a negative 4. I'm going to draw a line here so I can keep this concise. These 7's cancel. 2x comes down in the middle. And then 7 plus 7 here gives me 14. And then again, I want to isolate that x. I'm going to divide. I'm going to divide by 2 on all 3 sides. Then I have negative 4 divided by 2. I'm dividing by a positive. Even though this is a negative number, I'm dividing by, so it's what you're dividing by. I'm dividing by a positive, so nothing changes. So this is negative 4 divided by 2, negative 2. So this inequality symbol stays less than or equal to. These 2's cancel. I have an x right here. 14 divided by 2 is 7. Again, the inequality stays the same. Then that is x is in between negative 2 and 7. So then when I draw my graph, got negative 2, positive 7, and x is in between them. And what am I putting for my symbols? Brackets for both. Yeah. because we have the or equal to, so they will both get brackets. And then in interval notation, same thing. Bracket, -2, comma 7, bracket. Okay, let's take a look at example 6. Again, I'm going to just draw this line here to separate them. So you want to isolate this x in the middle. So I have this plus 10. I'm going to go ahead and subtract on all three sides. So 1 minus 10 is going to give me a -9. These 10s will cancel, bring down 4/5 x. Then I have 3 minus 10 is a -7. And then I need to isolate this x. Do you guys remember what to do when there's a fraction in front of the x? Multiply it by not just the denominator, reciprocal. So we're going to flip the fraction, multiply everything by 5/4. Okay, that way here, these 5's cancel, and those 4's cancel. So the reciprocal will cancel out that fraction. The x will stay isolated. It's a positive, so I don't need to change the symbols. And then let's see here. 5 times -9 is a -45 over 4. And -7 times 5 is a -35 over 4. So there's my inequality. -45 over 4, -35 over 4. Those are not going to simplify. And you want to leave the fractions. You can find exactly where they are if you want. I think that's -11 1/4 and 8 3/4 is where that would be. But we'll keep the fraction form. So -45 over 4, -35 over 4, and then we have our brackets. And then interval notation, bracket, -45 over 4, comma, -35 over 4, bracket. Okay, so before we move on to the next module, let's take a look at just one homework problem so we can look at the graphing. Yes. Yeah, of course. Okay, so we have this problem here, and I'm just going to go ahead and get a screenshot of it. Oop. Just move it. It's not going to let me move it up there. Okay, so I'm going to see it from right there, and I'm going to work it above it. Okay, so just write this down. All right, we have -8 less than 2 parentheses x minus 4 is less than or equal to 7. Okay, so we want to isolate the x in the middle, so we're going to have to take this 2 and distribute it. So we're going to go 2 times x, 2x, 2 times -4, -8. We'll bring these down. Okay, so I'm going to take that -8 and I am going to add it on all three sides. So here they cancel, but we still want a number here. So -8 plus 8 technically is 0. 2x comes down in the middle, these cancel. And 7 plus 8 is 15. And then we're going to divide everything by 2. Okay, 2's cancel. 0 divided by 2 is 0. Is less than x, which is less than or equal to 15 over 2. Okay, so we have our answer. We have 0 is less than x, which is less than or equal to 1502. So this is how you're going to enter it. Oh, we don't have to graph this one. This one, you're just typing in the inequality. So we're going to type it in as the inequality. So you're going to have next to the 0, or we have a parentheses or a bracket. Parentheses. So you go parentheses, 0, comma. Okay, then you have the 15/2, which is a fraction. So this is what I was talking about, the little key coming up on the bottom. So there's the infinity there. And there's more stuff here if you need more. You click on more or less. For a fraction, you can click this first button here for fraction. And then 15. And I'm just going to do the down arrow, 2. And then to go over, I'm going to click the forward arrow. That's what will bring me over. And I get a parentheses or a bracket here. Bracket. So I'm just going to use the bracket symbol on my keyboard for that. And then you check your answer. And it tells you good job or not. And then go. So some of them you'll have to graph as well. This one, I guess we're not graphing. I'm actually not seeing any graphing on here. Oh, there we go. There's some graphing. Oh, so there you're just picking out the correct. Just a few graphing ones here.